Hello, welcome to the At U2 podcast, episode number 78. We talk all things U2, album news, tour dates, community discussions from the staff of at U2.com. And for this episode, you've got, hopefully it won't be confusing to the audio, or I guess visual folks, to Chris's, but our voices, I think, are different enough that it won't be too confusing. So when I'm calling Chris, he's calling me Chris. Well, yeah, anyways. Yeah, Chris Endrenall is here on the show. Welcome, Chris.
Hi, guys. Hey, everybody.
And we're going to be talking about, I'm just going to fade that out there. We're going to be talking about the music of U2, which isn't that surprising, but a bit more in the musical theory department of U2, and specifically a few songs we Chris cherry-picked from Songs of Experience. Chris is the assistant professor of music at Florida Gulf Coast University, so he has actual, training?
Yeah, training, credentials.
Credentials.
Sure.
All the things we usually lack on this podcast when we're talking about things, sharing our opinions, which are, very informed and lots of experience, but we don't have a thing on the wall behind us or whatever that says we're a professor or assistant professor. So you've written...
professional nerd.
Yeah, you've written one of hopefully many more theoretically speaking columns on At U2, and you've got one in the works. And so this is kind of a bit of what I like to call, and a friend of mine, Dave, calls mouth blogging, where we kind of like help maybe spur on your brain and eventually it becomes an actual written column. But so basically what you've sort of highlighted or picked out hopefully four if we have time to get to, songs from Songs of Experience. And I don't know, how do you want to tackle this? The first one up is Red Flag Day, you said. And
yeah, well, actually, the first three that are on our list here, Red Flag Day, Little Things, and American Soul, I'm approaching these songs from the aspect of rhythm and meter. And zooming out even further, how that's related to Songs of Experience and its perspective, because it's told from kind of a zoomed out perspective of, we're writing letters now to our loved ones based on our experiences, giving them advice that we have learned or that the band has learned, and passing it on to their loved ones. And so it's Songs of Innocence and Songs of Experiences. It's a chronology, really. It's a story of U2 from both ends, right? And so U2 plays with time and meter in these songs, particularly in Red Flag Day and Little Things. It's teeny tiny in American Soul, so I guess I can start with that. In American Soul, when the guitar and the drums first come in, with the boom boom, as Kendrick Lamar is finishing his rap. It goes boom boom, and then we've got a measure, and then it goes boom boom again, and then we've got a measure, and then it comes in 2 beats later instead of a full 4 beats later. So it's kind of, it's pressing the matter. It's kind of a rushed entrance, if you will, kind of taking the listener by surprise, and that could be interpreted in any number of ways. But I see that as kind of reflecting the urgency of the song, the urgency of the lyrics. He's looking for the American soul, because where has it gone?
Right.
Is essentially what he's saying. And so, that's a big topic, and we can't wait to start looking for it. We got to find it. So that's kind of why it rushes to start.
And it's interesting to think. I know maybe a lot of folks listen to U2 and think it's kind of just happenstance. It's some of those kinds of things maybe are whatever the opposite of intentional, unintentional, I guess, and random. But I think, you and I don't know, obviously. We haven't seen a recording process that U2 we haven't been a fly on the wall, so to speak. But given just the way, even in the lead up to this album, the way Bono talked about Edge's just desire to go over every little note, redo things, song order, tempo, all that stuff, and sort of figure everything out. You have to think, as the scientist of the band, as he's been called, I guess, that so much of this is not just random. They just sort of happened to, Larry decided to kick it in there instead of earlier or later or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
And so it's kind of fun to dissect and pick into this stuff and give it a bit more, thematic weight in terms of when you're listening to the album, I think. So.
Absolutely. And stuff of issues of artist intent comes up in my classes all the time. I bring in lots of different kinds of music for us to analyze. And the issue of did the band know all this stuff is in there? Maybe, maybe not. Did they intend for all of this stuff to be in there? Maybe, maybe not. A lot of it, I would say yes, but some of the finer details, maybe, maybe not. But that's not really the point. The point isn't whether they meant it to be there. The point is that it's there, and that, someone like me or someone like you, with enough practice or with enough listenings, can hear that, and that's the important thing.
Yeah. Plus, it gives us content for a podcast and
And
stuff to
more
talk about.
importantly, yes, it gives us content to fill the internet.
Yeah, and I was going to say too, just in the interest of legality and all that kind of stuff, we're not able to play back music, which would obviously be the most fun way to do this, is play the song, pause it, go back, listen to the stuff, talk it through, all that kind of stuff, which someday, I mean, if U2's lawyers are out there and want to give us a signed over, we did it a bit when we did the album by album stuff where we played sort of a 15-second sample, but that doesn't really help us here because we kind of want to just dissect a song as much as we want, and so anyways, if U2's lawyer happens to be out there somewhere in the internet land listening to this and wants to give us a some sort of legal paperwork permission, then we'd love to do that in greater depth. But for now, you'll just have to maybe pause the podcast, listen to the song again, whatever Chris brings up and we bring up, and listen for it again. So, but yeah, sorry, I sort of diverted us down a little rabbit trail there. But
no, that's
anything
cool.
more with American Soul?
No, that was it. I just thought that the intro was interesting, that it rushed in. But really, the two songs that stuck out for me, both aesthetically and lyrically, but also with this whole time thing, were Red Flag Day and Little Things. In Red Flag Day, the chorus, there are three sections to the chorus. There's the first part where he sings "Baby does Red Flag Day," and it's just Bono's vocals and the guitar, and then we get the full chorus. And then the third section, we have the vocal echo of Red Flag Day, hey, hey. And it's that third section where the drums shift into halftime. So it seemingly brings the tempo of the song down, which is an interesting rhythmic property because the rhythm of the rest of the instruments doesn't really change. The meter of the rest of the instruments doesn't really change. But that shift in time in the drums also echoes kind of a wave effect that goes on in the vocals, because Bono's lead vocals, it's very, really short rhythmic values, and then the echo, Red Flag Day, hey, so we get longer, we get quarter notes, we get dotted quarter notes, and then the hey, hey, the note values get even longer, so it's kind of a, short notes, longer notes, longer notes, so the rhythm of the lyrics has a little wave effect, which kind of mirrors the change in time that we hear in the drums. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, that is, and it's something that I wouldn't have even picked. I don't like musically, even trying to play along to it as I was doing the other day on the guitar and stuff, and I wouldn't have necessarily picked that out. I think rhythmically, if I was probably more paying attention to the specific notes than any rhythm I was butchering when I was trying to play along on one of the guitars back there. But yeah, it's interesting that way, and you can totally see that in the studio, sort of intentionally trying to layer things to sort of give that wave effect as they sort of finish the song or hit the chorus or whatever, and because it's an interesting sounding song just for U2 in 2018 to be playing, stylistically or whatever. It sounds kind of different than what we've heard from U2, and it gives me hope, even just musically, that they're being really creative, that you pick out on something like that it isn't just Larry putting in his time as a drummer boy or whatever,
Right.
There's some
Actually, working on Red Flag Day, I was showing during our preparations. I was showing everybody, but I was transcribing the drum parts, and Larry is an underrated drummer, folks. If you don't believe me, try to play how he plays, but even more, try to transcribe his drum parts, and they are crazy hard. They are deceptively difficult. They're not necessarily as complicated as some other fancier drummers out there, but I don't think they're any less difficult. Because he has so much syncopation and just little details on offbeats that it reflects his wrong style of drumming, which makes him unique.
Yeah, exactly. Which is a similar, attribute often attributed to Edge too. Is that
he's
absolutely too simple. He just uses delay. He's lazy, or whatever, and doesn't have to hit the note that many times because he uses echo or whatever. And so but yeah, often all those little subtle. There's so many little subtle touches and tones that you hear when you actually dig deeper or pay attention to the music, that you know he did that. If it wasn't completely intentionally, he was very happy with the accident when it happened,
Sure,
like
yeah.
solos and stuff.
Well, and you two collectively have never shied away from the fact that they weren't formally trained as young children, and they know that, and that's part of the reason why Edge got into the Echo in the first place. But then, once you get past that, playing in front of 80,000 people with an Echo is really hard because there's already an Echo.
Yeah.
So there's an echo on an echo with 80,000 people echoing your echo. I mean, yeah, people who've never performed on stage or have never gone into a studio may not realize that that's hard. It's really, really hard.
Yeah. And especially for other people playing along with you, I think that's where for the drummer and the bass, like the rhythm section, because you
Yeah.
hear a little glimmer of. I've only done have you ever done a U2 cover night in any form as an instrumentalist or whatever? Ever played like covers from like
No,
on
but
stage?
I've sung my fair share of very serious U2 karaoke.
Right. Whether it's some liquid courage or not, but but yeah, like you just throw a delay in the mix, and all of a sudden the drummer is like supposed to come in, but he hears the wrong, not the actual strum, but the
Yeah, right.
decoder or whatever, and yeah, it throws things off very quickly. So that's where some of these songs, like it's again in 2018 with U2, the band that they are, musicians that they are. I'm really curious to see how well they're going to perform some of this stuff live, because it is
Yeah.
complicated and it is a lot of like random entries and exits, and seeing I'm sure you saw and listened to the BBC live recording
I
just
did.
before Christmas, and like
I
so that
did.
gave me a lot of, not that I was worried they weren't going to be able to perform the songs, but like just hope for like they're going to pull this off, like in and not just a studio recording, but actually like live, I think.
Right, and even though I'm not a huge fan of that video of Little Things that was released on Spotify, I'm not a huge fan of that arrangement of the song. But seeing them perform my favorite song from that album, even if it is for a music video, that got me really excited. I'm like, oh my god, they can do it live. Okay, let's actually hear it live. I'm really looking forward to hearing that one.
So then, yeah, why don't we go on to Little Things, since you're listening to the
Yeah, all
song?
right. So, well, Little Things captivates my attention on a lot of levels. This is the song that hit me immediately. But listening to it further, my favorite part of this song is the second half with that huge, literally 2-minute crescendo. But it's a crescendo on a lot of levels. Okay, so first of all, dynamically. It goes from very, very tiny and just the piano and Bono's vocals all the way to the full texture with the echo and the big drums and bass and everything. So of course there's a dynamic crescendo, and there's a melodic crescendo too because Bono's vocals get more intense. But there's also a metrical crescendo as well, where halfway through it shifts into double time. So it's kind of the reverse of what happens in Red Flag Day. So the first part of Little Things is really slow, right? With the bass. The bass is on fast notes, but it's a really slow tempo, and in the middle of that big build, after the first, the end is not coming, the end is here. Sometimes, after a long transition, the tempo shifts to double time, which is, U2 hardly ever does this, but it's awesome to hear this, and it's a great place to do it. And the shift to double time happens kind of organically, and it happens kind of like the sound is layered. So it's kind of a metrical layer where the Edge's echo comes in, and you could tell that it's kind of previewing the shift into double time. But the rest of the texture is still in that really slow halftime. And then Adam's bass picks up the tempo a little bit. And then you have some of the other background guitars pick up the tempo, but Larry's drums are still kind of holding it back, and then a couple of layers of Larry's drums, namely the snare, starts going, but the kick drum is still holding it back. And then after the first time Bono sings "The End Is Near," everything breaks down, and it's fast time from there. And what's interesting to me about that is, again, the link I think it makes to the perspective of time that Songs of Experience addresses. And that both Songs of Innocence and Experience address. It's looking at time from the beginning and the end, so from both sides of it.
Yeah, and that's the sort of rushing time signature, as it were, in that song. It's like the end is coming, the end is not. It's not,
Exactly.
yeah, or it's not coming. The end is here. Like we're actually at the end. It's not that someday we're gonna die. Someday life is over. It's actually now. And
Yeah.
yeah, and I know I don't know if it's a parent thing maybe of being awake at 4 a.m. when all the darkness is swarming.
Oh man,
I mean, that's a
that line.
universal.
Oh,
Yeah,
whoa, that line slays me. Slays me. Because and this is Bono talking to himself, right? This is old Bono talking to younger Bono, and that's also another reason why the song resonates with me. Is I can see myself going back in time and talking to 18-year-old me, and being like, your big mouth is getting in the way, dude.
yeah,
Come on,
yeah,
you know. And just that build is so dramatic, but it's a build in lots of elements, which I think is fascinating, and it's fascinating all the more because these guys are pushing 60 and they're still doing things musically that they haven't done before. And it's not that they're the first to do this; it's just it's the first time they're doing it. That's amazing.
yeah. Musically, at this stage, most artists you would think, unless you're Sting maybe or whatever,
Yeah,
are
right.
are basically kind of like settling into the routine of what they've done, and the greatest hits tours and all that kind of stuff. And so, to even, I mean, I think. I'm sure there's other songs that would be like this, but where the streets have no name with the differing time signatures from the intro
Yeah.
to the rest of the song or whatever, and sort of the struggle they had to get that done, and thinking like, why would they want to go back to that sort of struggle in various ways? And the simple thing to do would be to just play it easy and straightforward, obviously throughout the song. And so, yeah, just being willing to go there, being willing to try something, being willing to push themselves still at this stage of the game. It's admittedly, I think, to the unmusical connected ear, I guess it sounds like a fairly straightforward U2 song. Like it has all the hallmarks of a U2 song of old, I guess, or whatever, with the especially the crescendo and the ending, and the build and all that kind of stuff. But there is still elements, like you pointed out, I think, that sort of point out that it is, but it's got some layers to it and some depth that's worth
Yeah, well,
listening for.
and even formally, like we keep referring to that second half as a build, but what do you call it? Is it a coda? Is it
Right.
is it an extended chorus? Is it? I mean, so and form is my research specialty in music theory. So I'm really interested in what we call things, right? Music theorists are interested in terminology. So what do you call this thing? So even pushing the boundaries of form and structure. It's this band is not just playing your standard pop tunes. They are pushing. They're pushing, which is
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, because you've got the chorus of, obviously it's little things that give you away, the words you cannot say. That's like would be the chorus, right, of
Yeah,
the song.
yep,
But then,
yep, that's
yeah,
what I would
once
call
that
it.
stops, we've got like a length of, like you said, either a coda or something that's like as long as the rest of the song, the
Yeah,
previous
it's
half
literally
or whatever.
the second half of the song. Yeah,
Yeah.
so I don't know what you call it yet, which it might be my next research paper.
Is this
We'll see.
their like Stairway to Heaven, their
Oh, I don't know,
their
but
November Rain moments here? No, not quite on that level of production, maybe, but yeah. So then, I guess we talked American Soul. Was there more
yeah.
you sort of wanted to do that one, but then also the best thing about me was another.
Yeah, well, our fellow staffer Sherry asked this question well, let me pull up her question. Key changes in the songs, and she says, and I'm quoting here, the ones where Bono's struggling with depression and optimism. Does the music key change in some way? In the same way, excuse me. How does the music structure mirror the content of the lyric? And the first song that came to mind on this album was "You're the Best Thing About Me," and the choruses are in a different key from the verses. The verses center around F sharp, and the choruses center around D, which is also interesting because I used this class last semester in the same class that I used Beethoven, because Beethoven and a lot of the romantic composers have key relationships that are very similar. We call these chromatic mediant or chromatic third relationships. That's really nerdy music theory talk there, but
Well,
but I used.
I was gonna say the lazy guitar player nerds or whatever like me are just like, hey, that sounds kind of cool. That's the
Yeah,
that's the layman's term.
it's essentially shifting up 4 frets.
Yeah.
That's what we're talking about here. But I found it interesting because U2 uses a similar harmonic principle as Beethoven, and Schubert uses it, and Schumann uses it. So, a lot of the things that I talk about in the classical realm also has examples here in the pop realm. But that different key change in the verses and lyrics is, I think, tied to, the voice that Bono takes in the verses versus the voice that he takes in the chorus of "You're the Best Thing About Me." Because in the verses, or sorry, in the choruses, he's singing to somebody and about somebody. You're the best thing about me, right? So it's in D major, it's in a bright key. It's very it's a very positive sounding section. Not that the verses don't sound positive, but it centers around F sharp, but not really F sharp major. It's more like F sharp, maybe mixolydian, so major-ish, minor-ish type thing. We don't really know. It's quite modal, but the lyrics of the verses have a different tone to them. So different tone in the lyrics, different key. Yeah, that makes sense.
Which if you're listening and you're non-musical, and even for me when I was playing it, I don't claim to be super musical, especially because I don't even know what mixolydian means. But I just those are when you see a chord on the thing and it's like F sharp major 7, and then that's where I stop. I don't worry about what it says after that. That's about as far as I go. But the when it sort of transitions from the verse to the chorus in that song, there's a bit of like a, I don't know. You can sort of feel it in your gut of like there's something changed. And I'm not sure. It sounds almost like it's two different recordings that they slammed together. But
Yep.
yeah, because it's a key change without
That's
a transition chord or any sort of like leading you into that key change. The way when a big '80s rock ballad is like Meatloaf is going to the next
Yeah,
change
bum,
of
bum,
key.
bum. Yep.
Yeah, it's just like, no, we're going from here to here, and then we're going to switch right back and not really give you any sort of warning, which is. It's one of those things where it can go wrong or it can go really right. And I feel like
Yeah.
it went pretty right here, but I could feel like maybe folks listening to the song would think something's not quite right with that song, and I don't know what it is, and I don't like
The
it.
first few times I listened to it, I had that exact feeling. I was like, okay, I don't not like the song, but something is odd about it. And then I sat down at the piano. I was like, oh, that's what's odd about it. And all of a sudden, it's not odd. It's actually cool because it's nerdy.
Yeah. That's where it's like nothing actually changed about the song, but you just appreciated there's another layer to it that was intentional, presumably, and now all of a sudden
Yeah,
it's cool.
yeah, and that's part of the reason why I love my job. It gives me a chance. It gives me tools and vocabulary to dissect some of my favorite music. So
So the what would it be? The bridge where Edge is singing, "I can see it all so clearly. I can see you, what
yeah,
you can't see." That would still be in D, is
yeah,
it? Right.
it is in
It's
D.
just
And actually, I was listening to it earlier today, and even the drumming pattern and the layers that layer emphasizes is in the verses is different from the chorus. In the chorus, he rides the hi hat a lot. In the verses, he does the ride cymbal more often than the hi hat. So it's not just the pattern, but it's also which drums and which cymbals he's emphasizing. So these guys are keenly aware, I think, of their own music and what they are doing with their respective instruments and how it's contributing to everything. These guys are underrated, I think.
yeah. And it'll be like we won't have. There's a whole bunch of new producers on this album, like Ryan Tedder is one or
Yeah.
whatever. But where we don't know what level of influence and how much influence they had over the album musically. There's obviously the Summer of Love has the throwbacks or roots in what's his band, One Republic's
Right.
rhythm or whatever, or that they came up with maybe or whatever. But if they do another album, presumably if it critically is acclaimed as it seems to be, and if they maybe do Songs of Ascent with a similar sort of crew of people, I guess we'll sort of figure out maybe how much influence there was from them versus just not saying that Edge and Adam and Larry aren't doing it all on their own, but a producer definitely has a bit of a helping hand in some of
Oh, sure.
these kind of decisions, and so or encouraging them to do certain things or discouraging or whatever, and so it will be just interesting to see how much of that carries over into the next project if and when we get there, but not to get too far ahead of ourselves.
Yeah, yeah. I think we're still. I'm still processing Songs of Experience, and I'm very happy to say that I haven't stopped listening to it yet. It's still my go-to album on my commute, and I'm still very much into it. I've scrolling through my Twitter feed. It's been a mixed reception from the fans, but Anything
Yeah.
anything this band does now is going to be a mixed reception, right? I mean, I guess anything anybody does these days is going to be a mixed reception.
Yeah, there's. Do you know, like, when putting a bit on the spot here, but like, over the last, not counting Songs of Innocence, but even before that, is there songs and albums by U2 that have, or put it the other way, I guess, albums and then maybe a specific song that sort of like drew your brain and your music theory brain as much as some of the songs have on this release?
Oh yeah, yeah. In my dissertation, the second to last chapter were individual song analyses, and the songs I chose were among my favorites. I mean, Streets is my absolute all-time favorite song, and that metrical shift in the beginning and then again at the end from 3/4 to 4/4 is so slick, because the eighth note doesn't change the pulse. They just add a beat. They just add two more eighth notes, but it's done in such a smooth way that if you're not listening carefully, you may not notice. And
Yeah.
that when I was writing my dissertation, I was like, oh my god, that's kind of cool. So Adam's bass line in 40, not 40, in Bad is one of my favorites. What else? Edge's riff in Gone, I love. So yeah, there are lots of songs throughout their entire catalog that appeal to me from a technical side, both from a harmonic side and from also a form perspective as well.
Yeah. And do you think on this album, we've sort of, speaking of mouth blogging things, there's
Yeah.
2 or 3 guitar folks on the at U2 staff who are trying to like sort of figure out a way into writing something about Edge and guitars and his relationship with the various guitars he's had over the years and different ones he uses and all that kind of stuff. But even just effect wise, and whether it's not a specific guitar, because I don't know that we even know yet what all he's necessarily used on this album, but sonically, does this album sort of like feel right, feel like a good Edge album, or is it weird, stuff like
yes.
like we talked about, even Red Flag Day, like just sort of that slapback kind of echoey sound that he's got there, and there's just some stuff that he's using and sounding, the effects that he's using that sound again kind of like Edge but not Edge, And so,
Yeah, well, I mean, okay, so let's take like the first single, Best Thing About Me, right? That echo is signature Edge, right? The echo in Little Things is signature echo, but is signature Edge. But again, just like you said, it's signature with a slightly modern twist to it. So we all know it's Edge, but it doesn't necessarily sound exactly like the other echoes. And to the untrained ear, it might sound all the same. But the thing I like about Songs of Experience is it sounds very much like U2, a lot of it, but the parts sound updated, right? It's refreshed U2 with callbacks to previous. So it's U2 updating their style, and that's what a band's supposed to do.
and is that
That's what this band has always done.
Yeah, yeah. They've always been, even like, I'm sure there's like a conversation in the room of like, okay, are we going to use that echo delay again? A bit of like, because it feels like they've gotten more, at least Edge has gotten more confident in the fact that that's a thing that is his, and just use it, and when he needs it, pull it out, and there's nothing wrong with that or whatever. It seemed to be a bit of a phase they went to, as Europa era or whatever, where it was like, how much more echo stuff can I do in this day and age?
Right. Well, there was an interview he did talking about his guitars, and he was talking about when they were writing All That You Can't Leave Behind, and they were struggling with it a little bit, and so he whipped out his Explorer. And the band was like, what? And well, he said in the interview that the band was like, what? We haven't used that in years. And he was like, that's why we need to go back to it, because it might have something for us. And it turned out it did.
Yeah.
Right. So people who criticize Edge for only having the echo, that's an incomplete view of what the Edge does. Because yes, echo is a big part, but it's not just the echo; it's the timbre of the effect. And you've got the scruff of the Fly, you've got the smoothness of Electrical Storm, you've got the dirtiness of The Miracle, but it's all signature Edge. So Edge has a lot of signatures.
Yeah.
That's not a hallmark of someone who doesn't know what they're doing.
Yeah, exactly. It's like you think of like made me think of like Running to Stand Still, say Zoo TV era, with the very like almost romantic sounding echo, but then a Beautiful Day solo that has that
Yeah.
same. It's like there's a delay echo going on there that is repeating the notes, filling the space. I think that's what I think. Whatever, probably metal guitarists or whatever look at and look down their nose at. But
Right.
he's just he doesn't know what to play, so he's filling that space with more echo delay. And like, whereas for me, I as a guitar player, I mean, I probably would cop to being lazy and or unable to play, and so the delay definitely helps fill that space when I don't know what note to play next. But I think Edge's style is just that. Well, the famous quote of like from BB King of like every note, every time you hit the string or whatever kind of costs you something, and so you don't want to necessarily use up all of the notes that you have on a given song right away or whatever. And so I think for me it's just there's an emotion and a feeling and I don't know that some of that kind of stuff, the Edge's use of echo and delay speaks to me in a neat way, I guess, musically. So
Same. I mean, it's very much a less is more approach. But Edge is never shied away from the fact that he got into this style of playing because he wasn't interested in shredding.
Yeah.
And he said that all of the guitarists around him were shredders, and the world doesn't need another dude shredding.
Yeah.
And he wanted to do something else, so he focused on different aspects of the guitar, not necessarily the fingerboard technique, but what comes out of the guitar. And he's a pioneer because no one does it like him.
Yeah.
And that's the definition of a pioneer.
Yeah, I don't picture Edge sitting around like. Although I mean, he did it a bit with on that "It Might Get Loud" special with Jack Black and Jimmy Page, but don't picture him like the sort of. At least when I was growing up, it was like guitar players you knew would always grab the guitar, they'd play like a riff, and they play another riff, and they play another riff, and they'd never actually play a song. It was just all like these riffs that they do, and that always turned me off. And so that's maybe why I tuned into Edge more too as a musician or whatever. But I don't picture him sitting around playing riffs and stuff, but like getting into actual songs and things like that. So, anyways, now I need to go watch It Might Get Loud again because it's.
Oh yeah, I love that documentary. I loved it.
All right.
I love that part where he's sound checking.
Yes.
Some of my favorites. Some of my favorites.
I love. Okay, well, we can just geek out on Edge for a bit, but like, he's got the massive pedal board, which I think he's downsized a bit. Looked like, but on the last tour, but like the massive pedal board that Dallas presumably clicks in for him when he's away from it, but like he's trying to find I forget which sound effect it was until the end of the world or whatever, right? And
he started with Until the End of the World, and he's looking for Pride. And he's like, "Where's Pride?" And then, there it is. And then the camera focuses in on the LED panel. It says Pride, and I'm like, "Oh my God!"
Yeah.
His songs are titled on his board.
Yeah,
that's how you know you've made it.
Exactly.
When your board tells you this is the song.
You just got to say, "Dallas, can you set it up?" And then it's like, he just probably has. I'm sure on tour he has 80 to 100 songs programmed in there. You can just dial it in.
Yeah.
Oh, I said Sula's correcting me. I said Jack White, or I said Jack Black. No, it should be Jack White. But sorry about that. Focusing on the negative instead of the positive. Man in Black or Man in White. But yeah, there's so many little fun. I think that was maybe an outtake. That wasn't actually in the. I forget. I saw it on YouTube, but I didn't remember it being in the actual recording or whatever of the documentary.
I think it was an outtake or like a deleted scene or something.
Yeah. So
yeah.
Lots of fun, nerdy Edge stuff. Guitar stuff obviously as well. But if you're an Edge fan who hasn't seen It Might Get Loud, it's like go get it right away because there's tons of fun stuff. And just seeing him learn was a Whole Lot of Love that Jimmy Page was teaching them, and then Jack White was teaching them the Stripes.
The White Stripes.
Shoot.
Seven Nation was it?
Seven Nation Army, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which that could have been a precursor to Lights of Home there's a bit of a. I was saying Spoon Man by Soundgarden, but there's a bit of like a.
Oh, and thank you for that, man. Spoon, that was killing me. I was like, that's the song that it reminded. It totally did.
He's got. Anybody by now is obviously tuned out if they're annoyed by music stuff, but music discussion. But like because it is actually, I think I don't know enough to say for sure, but like drop D tuning on the bottom D string so that you can just play bar chords on those bottom notes, bottom three strings or whatever, and just like I haven't looked at the BBC special to see how he's playing it, but that definitely worked for me anyways quickly to jam along to it or whatever, and gives you a nice fat chunky sound obviously for that effect, but it has echoes of Spoon Man. I don't think it's nothing like where it's like obviously inspired by, but just has like similar kind of style of going down the fretboard.
Yeah.
A bit more rock than we've heard rock styling anyways than we've heard from Edge. Masked in the lights of home. That's an otherwise kind of like, I don't know, U2 ballady kind of song almost.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
That's a good one.
all right. Well, I'm sure we may have said something wrong or musically, or you're like, why did he say Explorer when it was supposed to be a Strat or whatever? But you can let us know. I'm iChris on Twitter. Chris is at CJS Endronol. It's on the screen. It'll be in the show notes. And you can tweet at us. You can tweet at the Twitter handle for the @U2 account. It's twitter.com/ATU2. Facebook.com/ATU2com and Instagram.com/ATU2com. We will be back in a couple weeks, I think, with another episode as yet to be determined. Lots of different topic ideas and things. Of course, we're kind of like everybody's chomping at the bit to start predicting and analyzing and thinking what the tour is actually going to look like. But it still is, 4 months away, I think. So
yeah.
We've got to sort of pace ourselves a bit like Red Flag Day or whatever. Trying to not crash too soon into that one, but I know there's lots of fun discussions to be had yet about the tour and stuff. Where are you? What tickets have you bought tickets, or where are you going to see them?
I have not. I'm waiting on that one. I've got other travel plans. I've got a couple weddings and milestone birthdays this summer, and plus the U2 conference.
Right. Oh yeah, we should mention that's actually something we will be talking about in a future episode. But you're going? Is that?
I am going. I am presenting a paper.
You're presenting, right?
Yes, and I am talking about two of my top 5 favorite things in the entire world in the same paper: U2 and Star Wars.
Nice. So, can you give us a tease as to what the connection there is, or do you want to save it for?
Well, yeah. So I'm talking about pop and how we can link it to the prequels. I'll just leave it at that.
Whoa. Wait. So the prequels were awful. Are you saying pop is awful?
I'm not saying pop is awful, but a lot of our fellow fans think pop is awful.
Okay, that's fair. Okay.
So
does that make Edge the George Lucas of? No. Anyways, we won't go there. Okay, that's a whole nother podcast. We'll definitely be talking about it in advance, and then I'm sure we'll have you on afterwards, see how it all goes and stuff like that to check out. So you can find past episodes of this podcast, including this episode, Goodstuff.fm/ATU2. This is /78, episode 78. Links to anything we've discussed, and it will be in the show notes that you can find on your podcast player of choice. If you feel like giving us a rating or review in Apple Podcasts or Google Play Store or wherever you happen to listen to podcasts, that would be awesome. It helps just the word get out about the podcast and lets other U2 fans know that there's a podcast out there for them, besides that other one that gets U2 on the podcast, actually. Not that we're jealous or bitter. And I think that's it for this episode. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching out there in Twitch land. And we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye, everybody.
All right. I can just fade that out and fix it in post. But thanks, Chris. Thanks
to
Sula and whoever else happened to be in the chat watching at various times.
That was awesome.
This will be a shorter one for the folks who are used to the 2-hour-long discussions. But yeah, no, it's fun. It's I think like the guitar. Who is it? Scott and I'm drawing a blank. Brian, I think.
Brian Betteridge.
Yeah, guitar folks. I should check that conversation. But yeah.
Oh yeah, that was about
some
the water
sort of
cooler,
like
right?
podcast cover challenge thing was the idea. Like,
oh man.
I don't know how well that would work if we like put out a challenge to like cover Stay, let's say, and then everybody submitted in their. Would it be fun to do it live and like just sort of not like singing it? I don't know what you do.
Ooh.
Anyway.
I don't know.
But it'd be fun to sort of see. There's lots of YouTube covers on YouTube already, but let's see if we could crowdsource some fun stuff there. But
yeah, and then mix it all together. That'd be fun.
All right. Well, I'll let you go, and I'll go, and hopefully there's no crying babies or kids on either of our ends that we're blissfully unaware of. Thanks, Chris. And,
thanks, man.
We will see you again. This will be released tomorrow, I think, if
okay.
all goes well. So
cool.
I'll ping you
thanks,
guys
man.
out. Okay.
All right.
See ya.
See ya.